Hi, I'm Parneet Jaggi. This video is going to be about how Renaissance came to India and how it affected the literature of Indian subcontinent. Now, we know the word Renaissance implies rebirth, revival, and it originated in Italy roughly between 14th and 17th century, and it was basically primarily a cultural uprising. But when we talk about India, Renaissance originated here as a social reform movement around the 19th century when the British were the domineering body of the Indian politics. And Renaissance in India materialized as a concept imitated from the West and punctuated a social reshuffling. So we see that Indian Renaissance, when we talk of the Indian Renaissance specifically, it appears to us as a reawakening of the latent society, a society that was lying dull, that was lying asleep, quivering with the threats of orthodoxy, dowry, narrow social caste system, and other orthodox systems, conservative systems that the society wanted to get rid of. Moreover, foreign colonialism at that time was an intense blight over India. Several social uprisings and organizations were developed to liberate the society from the shackles of superstition and pretensions and false religion and so on. So, quite visibly, we see that literature composed during this period is a clear specimen, is a clear evidence product of the socio political ethos of that era which wanted to change to a new revival stage. Now, when we talk of literature, Indian literature, Renaissance in Indian literature includes several significant creative works of renowned authors. Indian literature as a whole experienced a new beginning with the Hindu Renaissance in the beginning of mid 19th century. Now mostly it was centered on the Bengal province, and we are quite familiar with these eminent authors who came around with a new revolt, a new light of wisdom in the form of literature. These authors like Rabindranath Tagore, Sharat Chandra Chatterjee, Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, they contributed significantly in the Renaissance Indian literature by establishing a literary genre of the nation and no more the borrowed tongue. So, Renaissance we see is basically considered as an inspiration from the past and planning to rebuild the future. So, in this respect, the Renaissance in the life of a nation is like coming of a new age. It is like adolescence turning into adulthood, romanticism, and revolution, which is replaced by reason, narcissism, which is followed by disillusionment. And we see a country trying to free itself from the religious bigotries and blind faiths towards a new dawn of rationalism and positivism. Now, when we talk chronologically in terms of what happened, what we call Renaissance, we see that Renaissance in India began with the arrival of Sir William Jones. Now, he was an educationist, a judge, a philanthropist, a multilingual polyglot, a writer, and with him, education entered a new phase of development. He loved Indians and Indian literature. So, what he did was he founded the Bengal Asiatic Society, which was a revolution in its own time, and it is still continuing, it is still there. And he published various renderings of Shakuntalam. Abhigyan Shakuntalam was first translated by William Jones and transported to the West to read, and also Hitopadesh, and he wrote series of odes to Hindu gods. He also wrote a long verse tale, The Hindu Wife or the Enchanted Fruit, based on an episode of the Mahabharata. Now, Apart from Sir William Jones, another important development in this period was Jonathan Duncan, who started the Sanskrit College at Banaras, and Charles Grant issued the valuable observations. Now, these set the foundations to the new Renaissance, which would lead to a new kind of literature that was going to be original in India. When we look at the course of education that was to lead in India, the three important factors that changed this course of education were the intellectualism and the spirit among the Indians, which was pioneered by Raja Ram Mohan Roy, then the work of the Christian missionaries, and the persuasiveness of Macaulay's prose style, which we are familiar with. So, English, as a result of these steps, was soon accepted as a medium of expression among Indians, and very soon in Indian writing also. So, we see that over the past few decades, after the coming of this Renaissance, we have seen that the socio political landscape of our country has changed drastically, and there has been an atmosphere of spring clearance. Even the rural scene has experienced changes with abundant production and family planning and social customs being revised here and there. So, all these revisions, all these revivals, all these changes in society have had the repercussions on Indian writing also. And then we've seen that with the passage of time, more commercially motivated people have invaded the field of publication, filmmaking, and journalism. And with the printing press having a strong foothold amidst the rationalized Indians, literature indeed saw a breathtaking rise in India. Now, apart from English language, we also see that Renaissance Indian literature introduced a different style of Indian writing in different regional languages also, which is regarded as worthwhile and meaningful. Writings of young writers, new experiments and exploration of new forms and ideas. So, to elaborate this just a bit, we see that Indian literary works in different languages started depicting the life of the poor and the depressed also. In Bengali literature, for example, the prose poem gained popularity, and in Bengali literature, it installed the very basis of literary and social development all over the country. When we look at the Hindi literature was the authentic replica of the antique traditions with a touch of the rhythmic prose that was ongoing at that time. When we look at the South Indian literature that was steeped in Renaissance tradition, South Indian literature mainly underscores the human behavior and situation. And we also have Urdu literature, which, however, shifted from stimulating any social reforms, rather, it showed propensity for the cultural revitalization. So, we see that in India, during the last few decades, a new phase has been witnessed prominently and markedly sweeping through all literary output as an impact of the Renaissance. It is the change in the language of the writer. Not only the language, but we see with the coming of the Renaissance, morality is rapidly changing with growing urbanization and industrialization. So we see as a result of this Renaissance Indian literature, sudden explosion of writers mainly concerned about the future of their own nation. And we're going to be discussing this Indian writing in English in detail in the upcoming lectures. So thank you for now.